All right, a little news off top before we get into the third and final preseason game. The preseason's over, guys. We did it. We made it. The 49ers officially announced the Brian Robinson trade on Sunday. Brian Robinson is now a member of the 49ers in exchange for a 2026 sixth-round pick. No surprises there. But the 49ers, and the reason they waited to make this move is because they had to clear a roster spot to put Robinson on their roster, and they're so depleted with injuries now that they couldn't just do it on Friday or Saturday, because then they would have been down a player and Robinson wouldn't have been able to play. So the 49ers, in a corresponding move, waived wide receiver Malik Knowles. Not a consequential move, I don't think. Knowles wasn't going to make the 53-man, and I'd be a little bit surprised if he even winds up making the practice squad. He is subject to waivers, though, so we'll see over the next couple of days if the 49ers do intend on bringing him back. As for final cuts, the deadline for final cuts, I'm going to say final cuts, but it's not a final 53-man roster. It's final cuts because they're the cuts from 90 to 53, but it'll just be an initial 53-man roster. So that happens Tuesday at 1 p.m. is the deadline to do that. My guess is over the next couple of days, maybe not Sunday. We're into Sunday afternoon when I'm recording this, but I'm guessing we'll start to see on Monday some of those roster moves trickle out, where it's some of the veterans maybe who aren't subject to waivers, or maybe some younger players they just know are not going to stick around. They'll get them out there early. The veterans who get outright released, sometimes they get let go a little bit early to give them a little bit of a head start on finding a new team, or give them a head start on exploring the market before seeing if they want to re-sign with San Francisco's practice squad. Excuse me. So that's where that sits. Still no other cuts today outside of Malik Knowles. But again, that roster still sits at 90 players. So they have 37 players they're going to have to get rid of over the next couple of days leading up to Tuesday at 1 p.m. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit as what I'm going to do here is I have my notes from the preseason finale, and I'm just going to go through and talk about those notes. We're going to call them takeaways for the sake of making this episode easy to title. We're going to call it takeaways. But as I do the takeaways from the game, I'm going to try as much as I can to kind of crack open the bigger picture and get away from what it meant for the 49ers 30-23 win over the Chargers, and more for what it means moving forward and spinning it into the final roster. And so where that starts is the 49ers starters on defense. So Jordan Elliott started, Renardo Green started, and then two other guys I want to talk about. I'm going to put a pin in for a second. I think Elliott and Green are both going to start week 1 for the 49ers. Neither player has played in the preseason yet. And I think San Francisco just wanted to give them a handful of snaps. And that's what they got. It was a couple series each. Might have been 3 series each because the Chargers and Niners kept trading 3 and outs. But my guess is both Elliott and Green will be starters, and that since they hadn't played the first 2 preseason games, the Niners just wanted them to get out there and knock some rust off. Interestingly, no D. Winters. So if there was any question about whether D. Winters was going to be the will linebacker, there wasn't much of one. I think it got erased Saturday night when he was not suited up with the starters. Now, Chris and I talked last week when we did our 53-man projection, talked about whether Jason Pinnock would be a starter or not. It looks like he has a starting spot locked down. He did not play in the preseason finale, and instead it was Marquise Siegel and Jair Brown. They both played 35 snaps. Siegel might have played 36, but they were both in that same range, and they played into the second half. So that's interesting because it appears that Siegel, the rookie 5th-round pick, and Brown, the former 3rd-round pick, are battling it out for the second starting spot next to Pinnock. My guess is that Siegel's athleticism makes him a little bit more versatile than Brown, and that he probably sneaks into the starting lineup, which is a nice little win for the 49ers in this year's draft class. And as for Brown, he was playing special teams last night. If he doesn't get traded, I would imagine he sticks around, A, as safety depth, and B, as a special teams contributor. But that was interesting to me that they both started and played the same amount of snaps, because I think that's going to be one of the decisions that the 49ers coaching staff is making over the next couple of days here on maybe not necessarily whether to keep both players, because like I said, I think they'll both stick around unless the Niners can trade Jair Brown, but figuring out which of those two players is going to start. And that may be something that they continue trying to figure out in the week of practice leading up to the regular season. So, and God, there's still 2 weeks until the regular season opener. That's 2 full weeks. We'll be in the third quarter 2 weeks from now of the season opener up there in Seattle. But I think that's something that the Niners coaching staff is gonna be working on figuring out at the safety position. On offense, there weren't any starters in like a fully healthy version of the 49ers offense who played. However, there was an interesting thing on the offensive line that I would like to talk about. So Connor Colby, the official rookie of Candlestick Chronicles, shout out to CC, the 7th round rookie from Iowa, got first team reps at left guard after Ben Bartch got hurt in training camp. So Nick Zakelj started at left guard in camp because Ben Bartch was on the PUP list with a quad injury. Bartch came back, immediately stepped in to the starting left guard job. There was no competition. But when Bartch hurt his elbow, it was Connor Colby who got the first team reps at left guard, and Nick Zakelj moved to right guard. So I think Colby is probably ahead of Zakelj in the 49ers coaching staff minds. And the interesting thing from Saturday night was that Colby started at right guard, which is the spot Dominic Pooney typically plays. Nick Zakelj moved to left guard. And Colby has some experience at right guard in college, but he hasn't played there much with the 49ers. And so I wonder if he played there Saturday to get reps in the event that Pooney is not ready, because remember, he hurt his knee against the Raiders. If he's not ready for week 1, which it sounds like is a coin flip at this point, I kind of wonder if the 49ers view Colby as their top interior backup option, where maybe Bartch will be ready to play the season opener at left guard, and they wanted Colby to get some reps at right guard in the event that Pooney wasn't ready, because they don't think Zakelj is up to the task. And if they don't, given that he's in year 3 now and hasn't carved out any kind of regular role or any reliable role, I have to wonder if Zakelj is a player that winds up getting let go when it comes time to trim the roster to 53 players. And that's not that's just it might be a numbers issue at other positions. It might be a just quality of player issue. But the fact that he's gotten moved around so much and Connor Colby is getting all these other kind of opportunities says to me that the 7th round rookie has passed up Zakelj. And maybe, I mean, Zakelj has dabbled a little bit at center. He's dabbled at both the guard spots. He played tackle in college at Fordham. So in a super pinch, maybe he can kick out there. But that versatility may keep him around. But right now it looks like he is tumbled down the depth chart when it looked like he would be battling for a starting job entering camp. And I don't think that's necessarily a good sign for him. Isaac Guerendo also played a ton. And Kyle Shanahan confirmed last night after the game that Guerendo would be the 3rd running. Well, he didn't necessarily confirm that. He did confirm that Brian Robinson would be the 2nd running back, and Guerendo was actually playing special teams. Got hurt playing special teams. He was covering a punt and came up favoring his shoulder that kept him out of most of training camp. Now, he did end up going back into the game, but that injury question mark with him, I think, is significant enough that the 49ers, that's why they went and got Brian Robinson. Because I as good as Guerendo is, and I'm a big fan of Isaac Guerendo, I think what he showed last year was just kind of scratching the surface of what he could be as a player. He's so explosive, showed some real pass catching chops, and it looks like Brock Purdy trusts him as a pass catcher, and that's such a big deal. But man, he has just had such a hard time staying on the field. That started in college, that went through his first training camp, that went through his first season, and then into his second training camp. And then he got hurt in the lone preseason game he played. So I think the 49ers, I think they still like Guerendo, but I think if Christian McCaffrey is absent, I just don't think that they can rely on Guerendo to be a guy who can shoulder 15 to 20 carries across a full game, 2-3 games. He just has not shown that. So he played a ton on Saturday, and that to me was the 49ers coaching staff, A, trying to eat some carries, but B, trying to get him to knock some rust off. and seeing what he could contribute on special teams. He did play 124 special team snaps last year. So I think that if he has a role moving forward, I think that's primarily where it's going to be. That said, at running back, it looks like the 4 running backs are set with Christian McCaffrey and Brian Robinson and Isaac Guerrero and Jordan James, who Kyle Shanahan said he expects back this week. James broke his finger leading up to the first preseason game, had surgery on that finger, and has not participated in practice since. But it sounds like he's going to be back very soon. So I think that's going to be the 4 running backs. Shanahan said it after the game, and this was another one of my takeaways, was Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to make it really, really difficult to cut him. And Kyle Shanahan said as much after the game. And I imagine, since he can be granted his outright release, he's not susceptible to waivers. Unless some team is out there going to offer him a starting job or a share of a starting job, I would imagine he winds up signing with the 49ers practice squad and staying with the team that signed him as an undrafted rookie in 2018. That would be my guess as to how this shakes out. But man, he looked really good last night. And if there's any question about Guerendo's health or Jordan James' health, or Jordan James really just ability to play in the NFL, he hasn't gotten to play a ton yet. So we don't know what he looks like as a runner. My assumption is he'll be a healthy scratch in week 1. But I think that having Jeff Wilson nearby would be a pretty big deal for San Francisco, just because he knows the offense. And I think Saturday night, against the Chargers, you're probably listening to this on Monday, so I'm going to say last night, but I'm talking about Saturday. So sorry about that. But Wilson just was so decisive, and he just runs so hard. Like that was the hallmark of his time in San Francisco, was the explosive plays weren't necessarily going to be there down in and down out, but he was going to run really, really, really hard, particularly near the goal line. He's going to go find the end zone. And he did that on Saturday, and I thought ran well enough to make it difficult on the 49ers coaching staff to let him go. And ideally for the 49ers, he'll be back, but it'd be really cool for Jeff Wilson if he parlayed a couple of preseason games with the 49ers into a roster job elsewhere. On offense, Sky Moore made his debut. He also made his debut on special teams. And you know what? This is not going to be a drag Sky Moore session. He wasn't effective, but I also don't think that it's fair to paint with a broad brush about what he's going to look like with the 49ers based on this game. And there was a lot of stuff there that plagued him with the Chiefs, just not really breaking tackles, not super effective on punt returns. He's just kind of a guy. Now, we'll see what that looks like. The fact that he played on offense at all was pretty impressive. He didn't even get a practice with the 49ers. Like, they probably just threw a playbook at him and said, "Hey, what did you retain over the last 24 hours?" You saw Malik Turner helping him, showing him where to line up, and the quarterbacks were working with him, telling him when to go in motion and all that. But that's sort of what you expect when a player is playing in a football game where he hasn't practiced with the team ever. So I'm not gonna take away too much from Sky Moore's debut. It just didn't. If there was any hope from anyone that Moore was going to magically, when he left Kansas City, magically turn into this awesome, explosive, all-around special teams playmaker, offensive weapon, that wasn't going to happen. That flip of the switch was not there. So if Sky Moore is ever going to find his footing and become a productive player with the 49ers, it wasn't going to happen in a preseason setting. It wasn't going to happen in a preseason setting where he hadn't gotten to practice with the team. But overall, largely underwhelming for me with Sky Moore. And I would imagine that he'll be on the roster, but I don't think the 49ers are going to do too much in terms of leaning on him, particularly early on in his tenure. You might see some design screens, some jet sweeps, and just see him on punt returns, but I don't think he's going to be a regular part of the receiver rotation, at least out of the gate through the first couple of weeks. And speaking of the receiver rotation, just very, very quickly, Demarcus Robinson caught a touchdown. That throw from Tanner Mordecai, I need to shout that out because that was a dime. Mordecai has had some moments over the last couple of preseasons, good and bad. That was right at the top of his good moments. That was sick. That was a really, really awesome throw. And the 49ers aren't going to have Marcus Robinson, of course, through the first 3 games because he is suspended for violating the NFL substance abuse policy because of a DUI that he caught in Southern California last November while he was playing with the Rams. But really nice throw from Mordecai on that play. That was a dot. Shout out to Tanner Mordecai. Sorry, I'm going down my list here. I got out of order on my list of notes, which is never good to do when you're trying to record a thing on the fly and you don't have a co-host who's going to talk while you organize your thoughts. So bear with me for a moment. I'm going to go back to the safety position real quick, talking about Marquise Siegel and Jair Brown, who we talked about a little earlier. I just don't sleep on Jalen Mahoney. Undrafted rookie last year, just flashes, it feels like, every time he's on the field. He got downhill and made a couple of good run stops last night and was a player that, in fact, you know what, he might have been an undrafted rookie 2 years ago, excuse me. He's a player that Steve Wilkes really liked. And I think there's a player there. And certainly not an all-pro or a Pro Bowler, maybe not even a starter, but I don't think Jalen Mahoney is bad at football. And he flashes enough in the preseason. He's played a handful of games with the 49ers after being on their practice squad. If the 49ers find a trade partner for Jair Brown and they send him out, don't be shocked if Jalen Mahoney winds up on the roster. I wish I could put my finger on it, and it might just be preseason overreaction by me. I am susceptible to that. But there's something about Jalen Mahoney that makes me think he's a player. So keep that name in mind as final cuts come down. Alfred Collins, once again, I think it's just going to be a pretty significant learning curve for him playing in the NFL, where being big isn't going to cut it on a down in, down out basis like it might in college. So I think there's going to be a real learning curve for him. I don't think he's going to start. I would imagine Jordan Elliott does that. Talked about him a little earlier, but I think Collins is going to be a rotational player. And I certainly, the thing with him is like, okay, run stopper, pass rushing upside. The way he moves his feet at 6'5", 320 or whatever he is, like he can move different in this and that. The pass rushing upside goes out the window for me right now. I just got to see him become a consistent run stopper, where he's consistently pushing the pocket and not fighting to a stalemate on the offensive line. He gets stood up a lot, and that's a pad level problem. That's just a general, I think, adjusting to NFL speed problem. It's going to take a minute, I think, for Alfred Collins, the second round pick, to be super productive. It wouldn't shock me at all if he winds up being behind Elliott, certainly CJ West, maybe Kalia Davis. Shoot, Sebastian Valdez, the undrafted rookie, might wind up ahead of him if he makes the roster. So that's I'm going to call it a concern. I'll call that a concern right now. It's a little bit of a question mark for me with Alfred Collins in terms of how effective he's going to be, because I just kept waiting. Okay, first preseason game, understandable that it's not great. Okay, second preseason game, all right, still not a ton. Pro Football Focus credited Collins with a pressure last night, which is new, and you like to see any kind of production from him at some point. But they also had him down for 2 missed tackles, and that's just not a thing that can really happen for a second round pick. So, a little bit of a red flag with Collins for me in terms of what he's going to be in year one. Speaking of defensive tackles, though, again, trying not to make mountains out of something smaller than a molehill. What's smaller than a molehill? Ant farms? Mountains out of ant farms? Is that small? Yeah, we'll go with that. Not trying to make a mountain out of an ant farm here, but I do want to point out Evan Anderson, second-year undrafted defensive tackle, had a couple of moments last night as a run stopper. He dove on the loose ball and the fumble that Nick Martin generated. We'll talk about Nick Martin more in a second. But Evan Anderson, I thought, had a couple of good moments. Sebastian Valdez, who I just mentioned, continues to just have splash play here, splash play there. And again, what separates the preseason performance or practice squad guy from a regular rotation player is not the quality of the splash play, but how consistent can you get there? And I think there's been enough with Valdez that if I'm the 49ers, I'm keeping him around, man. There's just not enough talent at defensive tackle for me right now where I'm punting on Valdez. for whoever, whether it's Anderson or Kalia Davis or you're not obviously getting rid of Alfred Collins or CJ West, and Jordan Elliott is going to probably start, but I just don't think there's anybody else on the roster. Like if you can find a rotational defensive tackle as an undrafted rookie, like that's huge for the type of rebuild the 49ers are trying to do. And I'm going to give Valdez every chance to do that because I'm not sure you could sneak him through waivers. So he had a couple more really good moments last night, had a big quarterback hit to help force an incompletion. Shaquille Brown got some push in the pocket, knocked down a pass late in the game. So shout out to the reserve defensive tackles. I think they did a nice job last night of flashing enough that it's going to make it tough on the 49ers coaching staff, figuring out how they want to maneuver just to upside is going to be the big thing this year, because I'm not sure the quality is there right now for San Francisco in terms of depth on the defensive line. But I do think that there's enough upside that they can make it interesting. Speaking of reserve defensive linemen, I was really, really impressed by Travis Gibson last night, a reserve defensive end. I didn't see Robert Beal do a ton, but Pro Football Focus had him down for 5 pressures, and then he and Gibson met at the quarterback to force an incompletion late in last night's game. If there's anything that the 49ers can get outside of Nick Bosa and Michael Williams and Bryce Huff this year at defensive end, Sam Okawanu started and didn't play a lot. He's probably going to be on the roster, but it'll be interesting to see if Gibson or Beal did enough to make the roster. I was pretty impressed with Gibson over his preseason action, but again, you can't take too much away from it. So some decisions to make for the 49ers coaching staff at defensive end and at defensive tackle. I mentioned Nick Martin. I will say I was as critical as anybody of Nick Martin after that first preseason game. He was a mess. Missed tackles, over pursuing plays, particularly in the open field, just overrunning ball carriers, like just things that you can't have happen. He was really good in week 2 of the preseason, and he was really good Saturday night, excuse me. He's starting to figure it out, and you see the game slowing down for him. And as the game slows down, he speeds up, and we hear the term run and hit linebacker with him all the time, and you're really seeing it. It's reaching a point now where when he gets his hands on a player, they are going to go to the ground. And that's really what you wanted to see, particularly after that first preseason game where he was just sliding off of ball carriers. Like, man, like is his size going to be prohibitive here? Like, can he really not tackle NFL players? But that's not been the case the last couple of games. He's looked really, really good. And if you're the Niners, that's so huge because D Winters, I don't, even though he has earned that starting job, I don't think you necessarily want to go into the year going, oh, for sure, D Winters is going to have to play 17 games because there's not enough depth behind him. Now, it wouldn't shock me at all if the 49ers get 4 or 5 games in and decide that D Winters is not it and they want to look elsewhere. And I think Nick Martin's ready. At least ready to give it a go as a starter. So it'll be Winters at will linebacker to start the year. Maybe they put Martin at Sam. Maybe they like him enough as a run stopping linebacker that they put him at the Sam position. But I think he's much more ready now than I did after that preseason opener where he was just a disaster. So shout out to Nick Martin. Clearing that hurdle in 2 preseason games is really, really impressive. And then last thing here for me, speaking of linebackers, how freaking cool was the Curtis Robinson interception for a touchdown? I think that was you know what? Who cares? This is not consequential. That's an all-time preseason moment for me. I'm saying it. I'm going out on that limb. All-time great 49ers preseason moment with Curtis Robinson, who tore his ACL in September, was still the 49ers Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee, and he returned last week against the Raiders in week 2 of the preseason, had a couple of big hits there, looked like himself, and then last night gets the interception, the pick 6, that kind of put the game away, put the 49ers up 2 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter. That was a moment. No, excuse me. That broke the tie. I'm sorry. That made it 23-16. That broke the tie. That was a really, really cool moment for Curtis Robinson. And I was stoked for him, man. That was less than a year removed from tearing an ACL, coming back, having a couple good preseason games, scoring the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter off a pick six. That was awesome. Love to see it. And you saw how hyped his teammates were for him. Everybody celebrating with him on the sideline. That was a cool thing. And we always say on this show, preseason doesn't matter. But we mean that in the scope of A, the wins and losses, and B, in the scope of like you don't want to take too much away from it, right? You don't want to paint with a broad brush or make sweeping declarations about a player or a team based on preseason performance. But it still matters from a player perspective. I'm not going to go down to the 49ers locker room and walk up and tell Curtis Robinson, hey, you know what? This game doesn't matter. Because that moment matters for him, man. Chaz Surratt had a couple of big plays last night. Another reserve linebacker. That game matters for him. Jared Brown and Marquise Siegel battling for starting jobs. The game matters. So I want to make sure to reiterate that we say preseason doesn't matter, but in the scope of what we're talking about, it very much matters to guys like Curtis Robinson, who had a cool moment last night. Shout out to Tariq Owens, who also had a cool moment last night. That is first ever preseason catch in week 2, and then scored a touchdown last night. His was the one that put the game away. It made it 30-16. And that was awesome to see from him, the undrafted second-year player, and of course the son of Terrell Owens, scoring his first. We'll call it his first NFL touchdown, even though it was just preseason. We'll call it his first NFL touchdown. That was awesome for Tariq Owens. I have one more thing to talk about, but before I do that, I just want to shout out to the homies over at Cooperage. I was having a great time last night, sitting there watching the game. Cracked open a nice Candlestick Chronicles, that hazy IPA. You can get it now. You can either go to their brewery in Santa Rosa, or they have a new tap room down in Santa Rosa that it looks like a party. I've not gotten to go down there yet, but every photo I see of it, it is packed. And it looks like a really, really cool spot to drink beer. So make sure to get down to Santa Rosa. The beer scene out there is great, and Cooperage is right at the top of the list if I'm going out there. And I've been to several breweries up there. I wouldn't lie to you about beer. And if I didn't think this, I wouldn't say this in this little promotion I'm doing. If I was picking a brewery to go to, or if somebody asked me which brewery should I can go to one in the Sonoma County area, I would tell them Cooperage. All the beer is good. And I go, we do our event out there, and I go, and I told you, I went last December. I just went with my mom just to go. And that was just, we're going to go up to Cooperage. They were doing a coat drive. We're going to drop off coats. We're going to sit there and we're going to drink some beer. I have tried so many different beers there, and they're all delicious. So go check them out. You can also, of course, order a case if you're 21 or over and in the state of California. Go to cooperagebrewing.com. You can order a case online. They'll just send it right to you. It comes to your house cold. I have literally had beer delivered to my home where I sign for it. I bring it inside. I open it up, and I crack one open before putting the rest in the fridge. It's amazing. It's awesome. So get your Candlestick Chronicles today, whether you get it in the case online or whether you want to go get it straight out of the tap from the tap room or the brewery. Cannot recommend it enough. It's Candlestick Chronicles Hazy IPA. And while you're there, take one of those down and try one of their other delicious selections. Cooperage Brewing and cooperagebrewing.com. Okay, I wanted to get that out of the way before I brought the vibe down with Jake Moody. So Moody, of course, misses a kick against the Raiders, but then comes back and hits 2 game-tying kicks in the fourth quarter and then a 59-yard game winner. And it looked like, all right, Jake Moody is back. Jake Moody can now he now has this foundation. He can establish a new career arc based off that game-winning preseason kick. Who says preseason doesn't matter, et cetera, et cetera. And then this dude comes out in the preseason finale, and after the 49ers scored a touchdown, that dot from Tanner Mordecai to Demarcus Robinson that I was talking about earlier, he misses the extra point. Like, brother, what are we doing here? And then later in the game, has a kickoff go out of bounds. The Chargers get the ball on the 40. Like, these are They're not going to cut him. And so people asking, oh, why is he still the kicker? Because that he is. I guess they don't want to make a change at this juncture. And it was really impressive. Legitimately, his rookie year, after the couple of misses in week 6 and 7, including that game winner, that game winning attempt in week 6 against the Browns, his rookie year was largely successful, save for the blocked extra point in the Super Bowl. But his rookie year was largely successful. And his preseason had outside of the one miss against the Raiders, he had a couple of long consequential kicks in that game. He's a 53 and a 44-yarder to tie it twice in the fourth, and the 59-yarder to win. You start to go, okay, all right, hey, we got something here. And then he hit a couple of field goals last night, but man, missing that first extra point and kicking the ball out of bounds, it's like, man, this is why I'm not saying they're going to cut Jake Moody. And you might be listening to this and be like, well, they should. All right, well, but it doesn't appear they're going to. And what Moody has done here, after building up some goodwill in the second week of the preseason, all he's done now is ensured that his leash will never get longer. I think he's going to have an extremely, extremely short leash with Kyle Shanahan. And shout out to CBS and shout out to Jake Hutchinson, who pointed this out on Twitter. The camera work from CBS was outstanding after Moody's kick went out of bounds. They cut to Kyle Shanahan, who just looked apoplectic. Then they cut to Brant Boyer, who the special teams coach, who walked past Moody, head down, didn't say a word to him, nothing. Man, the leash with Moody is so short. And I genuinely think that one of the issues he's going to have moving forward is that added pressure on every single kick. Because every miss feels like 10. And last night he misses that extra point. And then the crowd, when he made his next extra point and he made his next field goal, the crowd erupting almost sarcastically. That's going to be tough for him, man. I don't think Jake Moody is ever going to have a normal, at this point. I wondered this after last season, and given how this preseason's gone, at this point, he's never going to be, he could make every kick this year. He could make every kick, including 10 game winners, and hit a 59-yard game winner in the Super Bowl. And then next year, if he misses his first kick, everybody's going to be like, oh, here we go again. Like, that's just where he's at. And so I think if he had gone in last night and if he had made that first extra point and the rest of the game goes how it went, he made all his kicks. Nobody's thinking about Jake Moody going into the year. But because he missed that extra point, all of that goodwill is just erased. I think that's with the fans. I think that's with the coaching staff. They're going to move forward with Jake Moody, and the consequences are going to be what they're going to be. And it wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, if you're setting the over-under on games that Moody plays in San Francisco this year, you're setting it at what, like 9.5? Figure about half the year maybe? And you're not feeling good about betting the over? Because, man, if they go into week 1 and he misses an important kick, I would be shocked if he's their kicker in week 2. And maybe that's what it'll be. Maybe it's if he misses multiple kicks in a win, maybe they go elsewhere. If he misses a 46-yarder in a game, the 49ers are up 28-10 late in the fourth quarter, okay. But, man, God forbid, week 1, he misses an extra point that's consequential, or he misses a field goal that's consequential. Field goal that's consequential. Easy for me to say. I don't know what you do. Like, I don't know how you keep him around at that point. Everybody, the coaching staff feels the way they do. Every fan feels the way they do. I cannot imagine what the locker room feels. You saw their reaction when he hit the game winner against the Raiders. They all know how huge that was for him. And then he comes back and misses an extra point and kicks the ball out of bounds on a kickoff. Like, man. Just shooting himself in the foot. But tough. I think that's all I got. On the 53-man roster front, I'm intrigued to see. I think Connor Colby's going to make the team. I'm intrigued to see if Drew Moss, the undrafted rookie from Colorado State, makes the team. And again, same deal as on the defensive line. It's less, these guys are definitely better than what they have, but I don't know that they like, is Nick Zakelj definitively better than Drew Moss? I don't know that that's the case. And if you're looking for upside, I think Moss probably has more upside. So that's the way I would go. I'm interested to see how the 49ers do that. I don't know that they'd be able to sneak Drew Moss through waivers. I initially thought they'd keep 5 linebackers. I now think they're going to keep 6. I think it's Fred Warner, Nick Martin. I think Tatum Bethune makes the team. He didn't play Saturday, but that was injury related, according to Kyle Shanahan. So I think it's Warner, Martin, Bethune, D. Winters. I think Curtis Robinson is going to make the team. And then I think Luke Gifford is going to make the final roster, or the initial 53-man roster, I should say. Chaz Surratt would be the odd man out there, but I think he's a guy that they could probably get to their practice squad. So that's how I think that's going to wind up going, and they'll feel good about Surratt as a depth piece in the practice squad. And then a wide receiver, man, I think that's going to be a mess. I talked about the running back room and how that could get a little messy, but wide receiver, I think Ricky Pearsall makes it. I'm going to imagine Jawan Jennings is healthy for the season opener. So, well, either way, he's going to make the team. Jacob Cowing is going to be out at least 6 weeks, according to Kyle Shanahan. So my guess is he won't be on the 53-man. He'll get the IR with a designation to return. You can do that with 2 players. So typically in the past, the players have had to hit the 53-man before they could go on IR with the designation to return. Now, if it used to be if you went on IR before final cuts, then you were on IR for the season. But now I think Jacob Cowing and I think Kevin Givens will be the 2 players who get the IR return designations before final cuts. Or when final cuts happen. Like, they don't have to be on the 53 and then get put on IR, and then the Niners have to do the roster moves to backfill those spots. They can just, they'll backfill them right away. So that's my guess. So I think Cowing winds up on IR. Demarcus Robinson is suspended. So we have Pearsall, Jennings, Jordan Watkins will be on the team. Sky Moore will be on the team. And then I would assume Russell Gage. He hurt his knee and didn't play in the preseason finale, but I assume Russell Gage will make the team. So that's 5. And then I think Robbie Chosen is an interesting name to watch. Do they keep him as a 6th? Or do they practice squad him and call him up for the first few games until Demarcus Robinson comes back? Maybe that's the move. Maybe Isaiah Hodgins is the guy for them. Maybe they like Malik Turner's special teams ability, and maybe he's the guy that gets called up. But I'm intrigued to see if the 49ers keep another receiver, or if they have a player on the practice squad that they call up for the 3 games where Robinson is suspended. That's something I'm watching at the 53-man cut down. So that's where we're at. Jacob Robinson also, last note from last night, Jacob Robinson, undrafted rookie, who I had making the team, is dealing with a broken forearm that he suffered late last night. So he is very obviously not going to make the team. My guess is he gets put on IR for the season. The 49ers will try again with him next year. Siren Neal, a player that Chris talked about in the last podcast, had a good night last night defensively. He's a special teams ace and has been for a long time. So he looks to be, I don't want to say a lock to make the roster, but I think he's on the right side of the roster bubble heading into final cuts. All right. That's where I'm going to leave things. Chris and I will have a pod for you on Tuesday night. If any major news happens Monday, we'll obviously record Monday as well, but we'll have another pod for you after final cuts on Tuesday, so we can start breaking down the 53-man roster, and we can start looking ahead to the 49ers and Seahawks game. Hell yeah. Can't wait, man. We're going to have regular season football to talk about just 2 weeks from today when I'm recording this, Sunday, August 24th. 2 weeks from today, 13 days, less than 2 weeks from the time you're probably listening to this, or maybe watching this. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. So appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate everybody watching. YouTube.com/@Candlestick Chronicles Podcast. We're really trying to boost that YouTube channel. We're working on getting an extra set of hands to help us with some video stuff. So make sure to subscribe now. We would really, really appreciate that. Again, YouTube.com/@Candlestick Chronicles Podcast, or you can just search Candlestick Chronicles on YouTube, and we're the first thing. We're the first channel that comes up. So thanks everybody who has subscribed, and thank you everybody who goes on to subscribe. And of course, if you're a podcast person, if you're like, oh, I'm not into the YouTube thing, well, first you should get into the YouTube thing. But if you're an audio person, download, subscribe, rate, review wherever you get your podcasts. Candlestick Chronicles. For Chris Biederman, I'm Kyle Madson. Thanks, everybody, and we will talk to you next time.